It's that time again. Another blog down. This is for the week of Monday, the 29th of February through the 4th of March, which is a Friday. So start out with Lou's class, and we did straight and crooked, strong and weak work, which is very similar stuff to what we're doing in Keith's class, but in his class it's much more free and better, in my opinion. And she wanted us to do this with one of our characters, and I chose Squire Woodby, and I had him be crooked and weak, because he's definitely a crooked type character. He does everything very used car salesman-y, if that makes sense. And everything that he does is very weak. He pretends to be strong, but he's a pushover, and his wife is so much stronger than he is. And I don't think that that's really going to help me in this particular case, to be honest with you. I already knew that about him, and this particular exercise really didn't do it for me. Because it's basically exactly what we're doing in Keith's class, only we're using different words for everything, and it's not, there's not really many parameters on it in Keith's class. I get why we're doing it. Maybe it could work better for some other people, but it definitely didn't work for me. Speaking of Keith's class, that was our next one. He brought back something that we learned in our first semester here, and where we would do a roll over each other's back, and then we did like a belly to back lift, and then a belly to back slide, and then the den roll, and we combined all of this with Laban, and so we're doing our Laban stuff around the room. And if ever we felt like doing something different, like the belly to back lift or the den roll or whatever, we would just get into position for it, and if somebody else noticed it, they would come up and do it with us. And we haven't really discussed how this pertains to acting specifically, but just thinking about it, you can do each of these things. You can provide each of these actions for your characters. So, for example, with Squire Woodby, he would probably be someone who rings people, which is a Laban technique where you're trying to wring out information out of people. And he also would flick, like he flicks things off on people. He's very twitchy and kind of wrinkly and weird. He's kind of an aggressive character, and so that's why I wouldn't have him be all floaty or glidey or anything like that. And I don't think he would be dabbing either. It would be flicking. And even if it didn't have anything to do with our characters, even if this was just a class that we're doing for no specific reason, we can still find something good out of it, like the fact that it's very relaxing. It helps make you feel good throughout the week. It's kind of meditative in a sense, which I'm not really a meditative person, but this is a really awesome class for that. Moving into Francoise, we added this technique where we did a leg shake on the ground. We would pull our leg up to our chest, do the and then shake our leg. And I don't really see the reasoning behind that. But then again, I don't really see the reasoning behind most of what we do in this class. All I know is most of this stuff works. Which of it works and which of it doesn't, I don't know that I will ever find out. But I'm still going to do this stuff as long as I'm an actor, because I know that it's working on my voice. So we moved into Roger's class, and we did what he called the Galliade, where you basically rotate defending sword into attack position. Holding your sword out like this, you have it like this, and then you rotate it into a position. And we started a choreography because people were wanting to do a choreography, and so he gave us how to do an attack, and we had to write it down. Had a workbook session with Alex. Talked a lot about Othello, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet, which I think were important. Figure out what people liked and what they didn't like. I kind of kept my opinions about Romeo and Juliet to myself because I didn't like it at all. I liked certain people, certain actors. I liked the idea behind it, But I absolutely hated Romeo and I absolutely hated Juliet. I thought that they were terrible. I thought they were a couple of kids just saying the text, which I know Romeo and Juliet are little kids, basically. I mean, he's 17, she's 13 or something like that, just turning 14. But that doesn't mean you have to act like little kids. These words are so beautiful. And I shut my eyes and I tried to listen during the balcony scene. And I was so upset that the words were just not interesting to me. They weren't beautiful. They weren't emotion inspiring. I didn't care. I might be wrong. I mean, everybody else seemed to enjoy it. Literally everybody else. Maybe my opinion on theater just sucks. I don't know. But I really enjoyed Macbeth Kill Bill because I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan. And then to top that off, each of the actors did awesome. Each and every one of them. And then Othello, it had its moments that were pretty decent. But it clearly needed more work. Elliot needed much more voice work. His voice was gone the night that I saw it, and it wasn't even closing night. So, yeah. Iago did fine. He had so many stinking lines, though, that he didn't know them all completely or wasn't comfortable enough saying them, so he kind of flubbed a little bit. But otherwise, he was okay. I mean, he paced the room a lot, which was either a choice that was a bad choice to make, or it wasn't directed and it was still a bad choice to make. So, yeah, he should have been more still. Also, I didn't like the torture scene. I don't think it was necessary for in there. And because of that scene and because of the scene where Desdemona and I can't remember the other guy, they're together and he keeps touching her hand and staring at her and stuff, it really did look like they were in love and that he was going to cuckold Othello. And so I never really felt for Othello. I kind of felt more for Iago. It seemed like Iago was trying to warn Othello, and because Othello didn't believe him, that the whole issues arised. So I didn't really like that part at all. But again, just my opinion. Everybody else might be right and I might be wrong. I don't know. Moving into Tuesday. Oh, no. So after we got done talking about Othello, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet, I told the group that I suffer from depression. And it's the first time I've ever really opened up to anybody about it. Even some people back home. I don't know that my mom knows. So I didn't want to open up about it, but I needed to. I don't know if you remember or not, but from my last video, I told you guys I had the worst week ever here in that video. Well, from telling everybody about it until now, I've had the best week that I've had here. I'm so energetic and happy, and I think telling everybody that I have depression really helped. And everybody is really supportive, and people that I haven't talked to are talking to me. I think everybody thought that I was stuck up, that I thought I was perfect or something. Because now all of a sudden people are talking to me and they're nice to me and I'm enjoying myself again. So I'm glad that I told them that story, that I suffered through depression. So, yeah. Now we're moving into Tuesday. Lou's class, we finished up our dance for She Ventures and He Wins. And I must say, it is so much easier than last semester's dance. Last semester's dance wasn't exactly difficult, but this one's so much easier. I got it day one, which was, 2 weeks ago. And then now that we finished it, I already know it. And I haven't really had to practice much. So it's great that I already feel comfortable doing this dance. Part of that is because we learned it so early, and part of it's because it's just an easier dance. And then even more than that, I'm getting better. I'm getting thinner. I'm getting more confident. So yeah. Speaking of dancing, moved into Colin's class and we started learning the tango, which now we have the waltz, the tango, and the foxtrot all under our belt. Some of the most common dances you'll ever find in theater and musical theater and things like that, and I'm glad that I'm learning these. Moved into Rob's first class, which is usually technical singing, but he switched that to the end of the day and wanted to do ensemble singing first, which, to be honest with you, I wanted to use our 2-hour break to learn the song Doors. I hadn't had much time last weekend to do so. So I wanted to do that on Tuesday, but didn't get the chance to because he switched it. So nobody was off book for doors, not even Aubrey, which she's off book for everything all the time, so I don't feel so bad about it. But he wanted us to show him all of the songs that we know, and so we did. I think the only one that we didn't do is the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, which I don't even know that I'm off book for that still, so whatever. Had our 2-hour break, and then we moved into Phillida's class, and I did my epilogue for Simon's class for her in RP, and she gave me a lot of notes on it, which leads me to believe that I was correct about assuming that I wasn't doing proper RP for the last 3 weeks. She gave me a lot of notes. Authors, wench, miscarry, better, gaudy, foreign, foppish, and manure. Those are all words that she corrected me on. And so I'm like, why wasn't I corrected on these sounds before? Why has it been 3 weeks of me not getting corrected and focusing on Robert and September? And I've really gotten to thinking about it, and to be honest with you, Robert and September are corrected so much more than everybody else. And I've been sitting back and watching, and I've noticed when people don't say the "oo" sound, they don't get corrected on it. Or they'll get corrected on it once, and then it's still, they don't get corrected on it again. But Robert and September, they'll miss one sound, and they're like, okay, you have to say it right. And then they'll miss it again. Well, you still have to say it right. And they'll correct them multiple times. And Phillida will spend hours on Robert and September. Simon spends hours on Robert and September. And it's just, I don't understand why people like Aubrey and myself and Rachel and Emily, we're not getting corrected as much as Robert and September are. I don't know. I can't tell you. Moving into Rob's second class, he started to teach us Estill theory rather than just assume that we know it and correct us on it when we get it wrong, which is nice because none of us came here with Estill theory under our belts. And so when people try and tell us do something like thyroid tilt, how the hell do we do that? We can guess based on some of the things that they've kind of told us over the time. But for the most part, we don't really know. And I'm not the only one that thought that way. So that's going to be nice to learn. Moving into Wednesday. Went into Simon's class, and we passed around, each of us wrote on a piece of paper a question that we have or an issue that we're having with our research. And we passed it around the room, and every single person wrote on it, including Simon, like either a suggestion for us or an answer or support. And one of the things that Simon suggested for me, my question was, I've been having an issue trying to find articles, books, journal entries on how to do acting through sci-fi, because that's what I want to do my dissertation on. Simon suggested this book. So this is my first book that I'm going to be doing research on for my dissertation. So I've gone ahead and I have purchased it, and I'm going to be reading it. So that's definitely a helpful class. Moved into Alex's class again, and we presented our scenes. This may or may not be our last time. I'm not sure. We have Lise next semester, and it sounds like the rest of the group doesn't really want to present for her. They'd rather do some sort of acting technique thing with her, but I don't know. I don't really care either way. I can do the scene with Madison or I cannot. Doesn't matter to me. Because to be honest with you, I think our scene's about as good as it's going to get. There might be some RP things that we need to fix. Alex gave us a couple of notes. He wants me to work on my spine alignment, which as I'm sitting here, I'm slumped over right now. This note, new idea score point used non-speaking notes. He wants us to expand our range to up places and down places, and when we score a point on the other person, which is a thing in Restoration. And then I didn't do my enlarged like a husband this time. He wants me to play that dirty joke, as well as endeavors, which basically means sex. He wants me to play those dirty jokes. So yeah, it's not going to get much better. I play those jokes and then I score a point using a different range, but there's not much else I can do. So I don't know that we need to present it for Elise specifically, but I'm more than willing to if we need to. And then I'm just going to combine all three of Chris's classes into one. We did Act 5 on Wednesday, Acts 1 through 4 on Thursday, and then Act 5 again on Friday. And this is the last time that we're separating everything into chunks. From now on, it's full run-throughs with just a couple of notes at the end. For the most part, everything's going great. I only had to call lines a few times. Most of the time it was on the same scene, the one that I have with Robert at the very beginning of it. And that's, to be honest with you, because, well, one, Robert didn't know his stuff either. Robert's having a really difficult time saying his lines right now. I don't know what's going on with him, but he doesn't know his stuff in the scenes that we're doing together. He doesn't know the stuff in Rob's class, or Rob's singing class, and he doesn't know his stuff in Simon's class, so he must be having a really difficult time right now. I hope everything's okay for him. I know other people were worried about me. Aubrey was really worried about me, and Madison was really worried about me and learning my stuff, but I clearly do now. I think I've shown that at this point. Yeah, part of it was because he didn't know his stuff, and then part of it was because I don't really know, I didn't really know what was happening in the scene until just recently. But Chris kind of sat us down and talked over the scene with us and told us what each of us is saying and why we're saying it, since we were having such a hard time understanding it. And now that he's done that, I know what we're saying and I know why we're saying it. And so that makes it much easier to have memorized the scene. So next we moved into Simon's class on Friday, and I did my Shaw monologue, or Shaw-log, as I like to call it. And I have it memorized, but I had a hard time putting the next sentence in order. And so what he had me do was move around the room, and every time I ended on a full stop, he'd have me turn and say the next sentence. And he wants me to say it as quickly as I possibly can while moving as fast as I can in the room without running. This was very important because after we had done this, I go to do the scene, and I'm wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I get the whole thing done out there as quickly as I possibly can, and it sounds great. And he appreciated it, and Aubrey appreciated it, and it was much better. And then finally, Carrie's class. Didn't get to sing in that class because I sang last week. I was the last person to go. So that was my week of February 29th through March 4th. So thanks again for watching.